Tēnā tātou, tēnā koutou e are taringa mai nei ki tēnei o ngā hōtaka, ki runga i tō tātou nei taonga o te maunga nei o te korimako o Taranaki, ko Te Aorangi Dillon tēnei e me i kau atu ki koutou katoa. Ki runga i te kōnia i Kōrero, i te pukamata hoki, koutou rā e whakarongo mai nei, koe nei, ngā mihi mata kui ki koutou katoa. Ana kei te kite koutou ki taku taha ko te whānau Capper i tēnei wā, ko ngā mātua o tā rāua iwi me ki, te iwi Capper. Nā reira e mihi ana ki kōrua e Wayne, kōrua ko Ari i tēnei wā, ana ka tuku te rākau kia kōrua ki te whakamoho atu ki te maria, ko wai kōrua, aua ahuatanga katoa. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'll just hand it over to you both to introduce yourselves to everyone who's watching us at the moment. Kia ora.
Ka pai, ko Taranaki te maunga, mātaku hono ki oku tūpuna, ka hono au ki ngā iwi katoa Taranaki maunga, ngā waka e toru, o Taranaki te Aotearoa, Ngāti Ruanui, ngā Ruahine, Ngāti Mutunga, ngā iwi, he kaimahi a hau mō te kāui o Taranaki, kai te aki whenua, ko Wayne Capper toko ingoa. Kia ora whānau. Yeah, my name's Caps. People call me Caps. I hail from Taranaki. I'm from Taranaki. I was actually born in Australia, but raised in Taranaki. So I whakapapa around our mountain. And that's me pretty much. A beautiful wife to my left and seven lovely children. So kia ora.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe iwa. Kia ora.
Katoa. Ko hui mai nei ki runga i te kaupapa o Te Aorangi nei e whakapāho ana atu ki a Taranaki maunga hurinua. Hurinua ki a Taranaki whānui. Ko Ari Capper tōku ingoa. He uri hoki au no Waikato. So ko taupiri te maunga, ko Waikato te awa, ko tainui te waka, ko Waikato tainui te iwi, ko te kauri te marae, ko Ngāti Whawhākia te hapu. So ko te rau, noho au ki reira, I te wā e tipu ana e tamaiti ana, te tau 1922 i haere au ki Taranaki, mō tētai hararei, engari kei konei au tonu ki te pao tōku hoatāne. Me tō tātou iwi nui, te kepa whānau, whetu ngā tamariki kei te mokopuna. Engari ki te taha o tōku kui, he uri hoki au no Ngāti Ruanui, Pātea. I ngā tau e rua. So for the last 2 years, we've just been doing some whakapapa history on my whānau, on my kui side. And we found out heaps of whakapapa through her. And because I grew up in Waikato, I never really got the chance to venture her path. So since being with my husband, Wayne Capper, he's helped me build a lot of that history back. And now we're starting to share that with our tamariki.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Tēnā kōrua me ngā pārangaranga katoa ki Wainganui a tātou, and I love it when I hear people say that from Ngā Ruahine, because I already know there's a hononga te Ngāti Hawa there, Cap, so don't feel any responsibility right now. But ko tūwhera te kuaha ki koutou I tēnei wā. We're always looking for our uriare Ngāti Hawa to come back to us. This is not emotional blackmail at all. I will leave the choice up to you. And of course, Ari, Ngāti Ruanui is basically Ngā Ruahine rangi, they might say different, but basically you're Ngā Ruahine right now too, so plenty of opportunities down here at Te Whānau. The door is open.
Ka pai. It's good to know.
Yes, for sure. And Ari, hard case because as soon as you started to taki your pepeha, I knew it was Maniapoto or Waikato because I can remember seeing you on stage at Stratford High School, of all places, when you guys were, there was you and Mirawai. Who else was on your course at that time? That was way back.
Corinne Brown.
Yes.
Honey Marley, I think. Tukaha Davis.
Yeah, that was late 90s, eh? That was late 90s,
Yes.
I think. Well, yeah.
Yep. That was the late 90s, and we were all up at Rangiati around the same time, right? And I can remember, I don't know why I remember that. Whenever I see your face, I'm like, oh, he piko, he taniwha, every single time in my mind. So when you started, I was like, oh, that's right, yes, I remember that. She's from Waikato. Oh my gosh. Nā reira, nau mai kōrua, nau mai ki tēnei o ngā pai o Koniahi Kōrero. It's awesome to have you here with us today, and I heard a little bit about where you were brought up there. It'd be cool to expand on that, especially the fact that you were born over in Australia, Caps, because that's almost like a full circle in a sense of where you are today and coming. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to get there, whānau. So you were born in Australia, Caps, and then what happened? You guys came back over here?
Yeah. So mum and dad met in Bondi in Sydney. And so, yeah, my dad's obviously, he's from Taranaki. My mum's actually from South Auckland, and they were both doing their OE thing when they were younger and managed to bump into each other. And in Bondi at that time in the early 80s, there was a lot of our Māori that were living in Bondi. It was quite populated with our people. So dad and his mates went over there and met mum. So I was born over there, and I think we moved home when I was it might have been about 6 months old. And so we moved back from Australia and moved straight to Kohangamoa. We moved straight to Inglewood. Yeah. And so, mum and dad, I think in the early 80s, that was when they had, I think it was like a Māori housing scheme where our whānau could build houses and stuff like that. So mum and dad got a whare brought over from Tūrangi, I think it was, and then that was our first kind of kāinga when I was young. Like we set up in Inglewood there, right next to the Maxwell whānau, Auntie Charlotte Maxwell was like my second nan, and the Patu whānau, and we all kind of lived in the same little street at Cornany Street in Inglewood. So I had an awesome upbringing there, and then we moved to town, moved to Ngamotu when I was about 9. Yeah, and moved to Ngamotu because a lot of our whānau lived in Ngamotu and in Waitara. Moved to town here and then was brought up pretty much in Tiger Town, around Tiger Town and Spotswood and Marfell. And so I spent my next probably 5 or 6 years here. And then, I ventured off after school. I ventured off to Australia again. So it's kind of, done that full circle. Right. But really I had an awesome childhood here. Like I think Inglewood was a really good start, small community, tight-knit community. And then when we moved to New Plymouth, that was awesome too. And went to school here, made probably my closest friends I still have to today I made here in Ngamotu. And then I was shipped off, went up to Hatotipene for a little bit. And then unfortunately, my mum and dad parted ways, and that's when I moved back to Australia with my dad when I was 16. And spent heaps of time over there. So that's kind of the journey from a young child.
Right. Okay. Tiger Town, huh? Wow. We'll get to Tiger Town too. So pihia koe, Ari, you said that you were, actually, I'll leave it up to you. Pihia koe, pihia tō oranga.
So I grew up in Rahui Pōkeka, which is Huntly. They call it the 828. I have a lot of whanaunga here. The Taylor whānau, like Uncle Peter Taylor. All of his tamariki are all my first cousins. So their mama and my papa brother and sister. And that's how I came to live here in Taranaki. I was coming for a holiday and ended up staying. And so my growing up in Huntly, it was pretty rough. It was quite hard sometimes, but I went to a kura kaupapa. So, you know, growing up on our whenua back home, my dad still lives there, Te Kauri Marae. Just in the back there, we've got whenua where all our whānau and that still live today. And we grew up there as tamariki. We went to kohanga there, at Te Kauri kohanga. Then we ended up at rākau manga, te kura kaupapa o rākau manga. And most of my everything to do with te ao Māori, mana motuhake, actually came from them and my grandfather.
Yeah.
My granddad's whakapapa is obviously Te Kauri Marae, and all of his whenua is from his mum, and so on. So I got most of my teachings from there all my life. And, you know, I was quite privileged to have that upbringing, because I didn't realize how important it would be today to still have to want that so much. Because, you know, most of our whānau that don't have whenua, they don't have that whakapapa connection anymore. And that's what we're striving to gain back. But yeah, so I was quite privileged growing up in Huntly at a kura kaupapa. Then when I left, I was 14, turning 15, moved to Taranaki. And the first place I went to with my Auntie Rowena and Uncle Peter was at Te Huatahi. So I was at Rangiatia most of my whole time. And that's where I met all the whānau, all the whānaus. I actually used to be the babysitter for all those whānau. So Kane and all them were all the tamariki. They were quite young, and I was the teenager. So I used to, you know, babysit for the whānau, which was quite cool, because then I started forming more connections with them. And it was like another whānau away from home. So Te Huatahi whānau was my number one. They were my connection to being away from home, because when I actually first come to Taranaki, I used to think, oh, kei hea ngā Māori. Kōrero, ki te Māori kone. Oh, kua te nuinga o rātou.
Kua mā.
Kua mā. So I had to get used to that, because I wasn't used to that being from Waikato. A lot of our people were quite dark. So when I come to Taranaki, that was my number one connection, was Rangiatia, te pihipinga o kākana o Rangiatia, and that's also where I did my toi whakari. Was with Nikiti Tuataua. He was our kaiako at the time. And
remember those days.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So you're talking Ngāti Whawhākia. So actually, I didn't even acknowledge that hononga. Our mako wakapapa, mako ware mahihi wakapapa on Dad's side also takes us back to Te Kauri Marae, actually. So it's quite interesting, the whakapapa that Taranaki and Waikato have. It's quite interchangeable, very close. It's kind of undeniable, I guess, at times. But okay, ka pai. So nā reira I hunuku mai koe ki konei, korua tai. Have you frozen? Oh, hoki mai anō.
Oh, yeah.
Tēnā korua.
We might not have paid our bill.
Fellas on the dial-up up there or something. So I was just acknowledging the hononga of Ngāti Whawhākia, because we've got whānau ties up there too on my father's side. He whakapapas into Ngāti Whawhākia through his mako whare mahihi tauataha. So we're in we're reconnecting with that side too, and some of our mako whānau who live in Hamilton they're on that journey to cement us up there. So I get that being trying to find that home away from home, I guess, and get into a group, I guess, or find those people who are have the common interests that you have. And at that time, especially, Rangiatea was a place, you know, that was definitely a place where you could find a common ground with everybody. And we had people coming from everywhere to learn Te Reo Māori here in Taranaki, and they talk about it too. Anyhow, that we could go on for a long time on that too.
Bring it back.
Yeah, bringing it back. So Tiger Town, because I might sound a bit stalkerish now actually, but I noticed that you guys are pretty hands-on in the league. Everyone knows who you guys are. There's always a kaupapa running with the league, and there's the Capper whānau who are right there with it. So did Tiger Town influence that for you, Caps, or was that something that's happened to you on your own, or?
Yeah, I definitely think it planted a seed of sorts. I was when we moved to Ngamotu, we moved to Pioneer, well, pretty much across the road from Rangiatea. So on the corner there, that was our homestead when we moved to town, and so it was just down the road from the club. So I played rugby and league when I was younger, mainly rugby, but I also played a few years for Tigers when I was younger. So I suppose the seed was kind of planted there. And then I kind of followed the rugby union kind of route. Your uncle, actually, he was one of my coaches, Rawiri Mako. Is that
it's my brother.
Is that your brother? I learning something new every day. Far out.
He's my big brother.
Oh, I didn't realize. So he used to coach. I played rugby for Taranaki development side, and he was our coach.
Yeah.
So I kind of followed that rugby route, but it wasn't until when I was in Australia, played a bit of rugby over there, and we were working in the mines, and there was heaps of us working, heaps of Māori working together, and the boys would always talk, imagine if we had a league club here, league club. And it had always been my dream, because I was a Winfield Cup fanatic when I was a kid, the old Winfield Cup.
Yeah.
And I was like, one day I'd love to start a club. And then so when the boys got talking their work, I was like, that's us, let's do it. So we kicked off a club in Western Australia in a place called Bunbury. And then and then that's kind of where it kind of rekindled my passion again, I think, for league. And then ever since then, it's just been a flow-on effect. Started the club over there with a real awesome group of people. Then we kicked off Western Australia Māori Rugby League. And that was massive, like huge crowds, like at the games, Māori, like full of Māoris. Is just so cool. And then I think that's kind of leads into how we kind of ended up back home, to be honest, because we fundraised and bought a Western Australia Māoris team back for the Nationals, and which is a massive, how far Western Australia is. So to bring 35 of us back for a tour is quite a big thing to do. So, and then once we came home, it just, the passion to move home kind of started from there. And that's how I kind of ended up back in the league scene. Was that initiation of that club, really, in Western Australia.
And were you around at that time, Ari?
Yep.
And were you in there? Were you supportive? Yep. And into us? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was playing.
There you go.
I was playing, and I was running the cafeteria or the kitchen, as you do. The wives tend to, end up in the kitchen to feed all the whānau. And when that club started too, they never had how do you put it? Like, not a policy, but there was a thing, there's a thing that we do at our club, and we feed everyone. So when you travel to come and play, you give them a kai. They never had that in WA. And we started that off. And we ended up making it a trend. So every other club we went to go and play, they did the same thing. So So we started that as well.
To be honest, like the wahine they all did the hard mahi, like in the background. We did a lot of us tāne just kind of front-footed, just getting out there and playing and organising the games and stuff. But we were very lucky. The club that we started over there was probably about 80% Ngāti Pikiao. There was so many Pikiao whānau there, and they were so awesome. And we didn't even realise at the time, but Ari's Ngāti Pikiao, and so we didn't even know at the time. And then we moved home and started delving into whakapapa, and then found out that they were all her cousins. It's like, holy hell. It's funny how things happen. But
It was awesome.
yeah, I think with rugby league, if you look at all of our clubs in Taranaki here, a lot of our wahine lead the way for our game here,
Right.
Taranaki and across the country.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We so obviously my brother is rā mako, so of course we were a Hāti rugby family. And when we were about to lose our park here in Taumata Park in Eltham, I only had little kids. Oh, did I only have one kid? No, I must have had all three of them, and they were only little. And he's like, "You're going to have to start a junior rugby club." I'm like, "What the heck?" Same sort of thing though. Try and keep it going. And so the rugby went on. But this year, my boys started playing league. It's just a total different atmosphere, and obviously rugby was in the whānau, so everyone in our whānau plays rugby, throughout the Rōriti whānau anyway. And then coming to league this year, I was like, God, this is where all the Māoris are. I was just couldn't get over that opening tournament with all of those families and all of those kids. How many kids do you reckon would have been there on that opening tournament?
I think from what I've seen since I've been home, that's probably the biggest opening tournament I've seen. That every field was full over especially that earlier part to the day was massive, and with the likes of Pātea and all the awesome mahi that Teddy and the team have done down there. Now with Stratford even, they got a team now, Jade and the crew, and so it's just growing. I think the game's very strong in the juniors. There's a lot of uffy, a lot of support, community support. I suppose where the game struggles a little bit is once our kids hit secondary school, we just don't have that same kind of support and uffy. And I suppose the rugby's quite well set in the schools, so a lot of our league kids just end up kind of playing rugby, which is a bit of a shame because they all really love league, And it has affected our senior grade. We don't have the amount of teams we used to have in the old days. But yeah, the juniors is so cool. That opening day is really, really awesome, eh?
Oh, it was amazing. I was just blown away. I thought that our kids weren't playing anything, And then we got there that day. I was like, everybody is playing league, and so I was pretty heartened because. If you are sticking to one code and you're not kind of looking outside of it and you're not seeing a lot of kids come through it, because rugby's completely different now from when I was a kid. Everyone was playing rugby. You didn't have a problem fielding teams, and you definitely didn't have a worry when you got to the under 12s level. But now the worry for me is definitely that it's getting to under 12s and under 13s, and they're struggling to get teams together. A little bit the same with our league kids down here too. But yeah, it has been a worry. Now, what do you think? Oh, actually, no, I'm going to go somewhere else. The Stratford League team, right? I can't not go to Stratty because that's my hometown. I think it's awesome. They got a whole full spread across the club. They've fielded a team in every single grade. And I actually think that their under 14s team, once they learn how to play league, they'll be away because they're all rugby players, eh? But they're fit they're also fit and they're tough, really, really tough. So, yeah, a bit off track here, guys, but that's just, I think they're one to look out for, eh?
Oh, most definitely. And we actually, about 4 years ago, we try to help kind of kick off league out there as well. There was a bit of interest, more from the senior grades then. But Jade and I were talking a few years back, and he was saying how cool would it be to have a Stratford team, and him and his crew, the crew that they got there at Stratford, the committee and that are just amazing. Even their prize giving was it was awesome. They had it in the it was all professional as and great videos, and it's just that's what kids remember that stuff, and it's the same with even Pātea, their prize givings for their kids. It's just all encompassing. It's community driven, and it's all whānau, mums, dads, kui koro, the kids. It's the whole whānau buzz, and I think to me that's what I love about league. rugby league is it's a whānau, it's whānau centric, very whānau centric, right across the board, you know.
Yeah. And then of course you cross over into the Māori league space. See you guys heading over to the Māori tournaments too. What's that atmosphere like?
It's awesome.
That's awesome, eh?
I think it's next level to normal league. Just because all your tamariki are involved, all your families come along. We've enjoyed that for many years. And I think because it started from WA, that was another chance for us to come home too. Because when you're so far away into another country, you still want to have that connection with your whānau actually coming back by playing league at the same time and being Māori. You know, everyone's proud to be Māori over there, and when you come home and play the sport too, it's even better.
Yeah, I think that attachment, like you have rugby league, like obviously you love rugby league, but to represent who you are and you know where you're from, your whānau, your culture, your hapu, your iwi, that's really special. And especially in that environment, you know, that poor environment, where, you know, on the field you get into it, but afterwards there's that whakawhanaungatanga. And I just, like, you just see it when our tamariki go away to those national tournaments, you know, like they're just in awe of all the haka going on. And so intertwining that culture with sports, it's just amazing, you know, because we're, you know, Māori, we're an active people. We like a bit of a challenge, and, you know, like, so that whole environment is it's just amazing. And well, I suppose the biggest kick I get out of it is for a lot of our whānau that haven't necessarily been brought up so much with the culture or you know, and that's their seed. That's the seed that plants within them to go on that journey. And so that's why I love Māori Rugby League so much, is because I've seen people kind of go in there and a bit shy of, you know, who they are and where they're from, and then once they get a taste of it, it blossoms. And you see it right across the country, you know, all the various, and I'm sure you know, with Ngāti Rangiti and different teams, and they all, it's a bringing together. It's amazing. It's my favorite weekends of the year is the Māori League tournaments. It's so cool.
Oh yeah, touching on Ngāti Rangitihi, they're always like, anyone want to play? I'm like, I don't think so. I was made for watching, not for playing. Oh my gosh, no! I'm not as hearty as you real Maritarians. No. Oh, I'll sponsor a jersey. That's my participation. How's that? But it's quite interesting, because it does bring people out of the woodwork who will just give it a go. I mean, you know, I know our team, our Ngāti Rangitihi team, had Te Aorangi Edwards playing for them one year in Shaniqua Western. So, you know, it was a proud moment. I was an auntie on both sides of the whakapapa on that day. But that's what it does. And we have very similar, if not identical, experiences with the Māori hockey team, being young kids, Māori hockey tournament, being young kids playing with New Zealand players, playing against New Zealand players. We would never have got that opportunity in the mainstream tournaments. And so, you know, you're a 13-year-old kid playing against Tina Bell. It's like, it's epic. I mean, you're never going to get the ball off her, but you're on the same field as her. It's just an amazing experience. And then that's how you get to know them later in life. It's more of a whānau affair than it is, you know, like this, sports celebrity, untouchable, can't talk to them. Actually, when people say, oh, did you know where? We're like, yeah, we played against you. They're like, you did not. I'm like, nah, true. We actually did. And I understand why you're welled out, because I wouldn't think it either. But that's the opportunities that these sorts of movements, because I do think it's a movement, it's a lifestyle. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle. I think because it's your passion first, and then it turns into a lifestyle, because you just love it so much that you put your effort, your time, your everything in your whānau. You know, you're so fully involved, and then you just enjoy it every time it comes around. You always want to be a part of it.
It is I totally agree with you in terms of the movement, because it's life-changing, right? Like, for me, my personal journey, I would probably be pretty honest in saying if it wasn't for Western Australia Māori Rugby League, I probably wouldn't be here right now. You know,
Right.
and that's a big statement to say, because that was the initiation of the journey that I've been on, which in turn has been the journey that us as a whānau have been on, and has brought us to where we are now in the space that we're in now, and that's how much it kind of means to us. And that's why, I believe it is a movement, because that's happened. That I've seen that with so many other whānau that have used that space and that time to to help intergenerational change and stuff. So like it's just it's a movement, and so much so that those Māori rugby league tournaments, they get way more than the normal rugby league tournaments. Like in New Zealand rugby league, and it's sometimes like, what do you do to why is it so successful? It's whanaungatanga, it's coming together, it's culture, and it's mixing those two together into weaving, so that's just so cool.
And do you know, because what we always see at the Māori hockey tournaments is there's just another whole element of flair to the style of play that's going on. So what you'll see at those tournaments, you might not see it ever again in another game, unless those kids, because they're all kids, man, they're all young. Not that we're old, but older than them. They're just so good. They've just got this flair that, and if they all play together all the time, then it's cool. But when you take them out of each other's pockets, in a sense, that they only show that flair to a certain extent. Like Māori talent can support Māori talent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's you can't get in, and that's why all the NRL clubs come to the tournaments, is because in terms of the various national tournaments they have in New Zealand Rugby League, Māori Rugby League, they get to see their naturalness in its finest, because they're playing with their cousins, with their mates. There's not too much set structure and all that kind of jazz. You just go out there and you just be you. And that's the difference, because when you're kind of playing in that mainstream game, it can be quite structured and very, and that's not how we roll when we play on the field, right? We just want to get in there and have fun. And so that's what the NRL clubs and that are looking for. Like, they want to see you at your natural best, because then they can work with that,
Yeah. So it's obviously across the board. Oh, we know that actually it's across the board in every sport. So you talked about, so league ultimately brought you back to here because of the Western Australia League Club that you started. So what is back to here? What are you both doing right now?
No, you go first.
So we moved home, I think it was 8 years ago now. And we were kind of at that kind of tipping point where our kids were starting to get on a little bit in the A, and we're like, if we don't move now, we're here for good. And it was like, and Ari actually wasn't really keen. She wasn't keen to move home, to be honest. So like, I kind of made a bit of a harsh call, and I was like, I'm going, whether you like it or not. Come on, or you're not. I could feel the maunga was kind of like, when I came home for those couple of tournaments, it was just telling me to come home, And so like, I kind of played a bit of hardball. I was like, I'm going home. Went home with the hope that the her and the kids will follow. And so I come back, and then I think these moved back 3-4 months later.
Yeah, about 3 months later. Yeah.
And so we come back.
Yeah, it was a hard decision for me, because I really loved Perth. Perth was like my home. I had tamariki over there, and we raised them over there, and that was pretty much our home. And because my mum moved over, my brother and his family moved over, so we were starting to feel a little bit comfortable living there. And I think we had sort of our own aspirations of maybe building a whare there, and then probably just settling and staying longer. But because when league started and all that stuff started coming back, like connecting back with the whānau and going to Australia and coming back through league, Māori league, that's when Wayne started getting itchy feet to go home. And I could see it, and I could feel that, every time Māori league was on, or if the whānau and they were around, he would always, talk about wanting to move home. And that's when it all started for us. But I decided to make the move. Me and the kids went back, followed him. I found it hard for the first year because it was cold. I was freezing. I had climatized so much over in Australia that it was nice and hot. The weather was so warm that it was hard for me to come back home and be freezing my butt. So got used to that after a year, and then I started working, and that's when things started to shift a little bit, I think. And plus, we started noticing the tamariki were happy. And I think mostly it was because they actually got to know their real families, like their nannies, their koros, their aunties, their uncles. Whereas when we were living in Australia, all our friends were aunties and uncles.
Yeah.
And we only had a couple of whānau that they were living there who they knew, which was my mum and my brother in there. But they kept asking questions like, who's my real aunties and who's my real uncle, and all that kind of stuff. That's when I started to realize, we definitely have to move home.
It's been a blessing. Like everything since we've been home's just kind of, when things just start to fall into place. Like it's been like that. Like as much as that move was, we needed to be brave in terms of the move, and even in terms of my mahi, because I've been in oil and gas since I was 16 years old. And so, we've always, had decent putia coming in. So to give that up to come home was a big, it was a big challenge. But even that, so when I moved home, I was only home for like 6 weeks, and this job just happened to come up on the oil rigs off here, and it was just like the dream job. So it was perfect for when we moved home, because then we kind of, it didn't change too much to what we were doing over there. So that kind of helped us settle at home in terms of, acclimatizing to a new way of living in there. And then so we bought a whare, and then, things have just rolled from there. And then obviously now we're both in two like awesome workspaces that we like really, really love. And even leaving the oil and gas industry to do the mahi I'm doing now was a big challenge as well. But the best decision I made, bold decision, but well worth it in the long run. Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
So I work for Te Kahui o Taranaki as the kaitiaki whenua. So I look after there was 29 sites that were handed back to iwi as part of the settlement. So Te Koru Pā, Tatarai Maka, Tapui Niko, some of these old pā sites, and our takutai sites along the coast. So I pretty much look after them, the pest control, weed control, fencing, finance, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. Love it.
Yeah.
It's the best job ever.
The kaitiaki, kaitiaki o ngā pā. And so, Ari, you're working with the rangatahi, and she's pumping up at Kātere. That's where I saw you last time, and that's where I see most of Kōrero's videos is definitely showing you and the kids in there. So tell us a little bit about that.
That mahi actually didn't really kick off until the beginning of this year, but I got introduced to it last year when I started working for Spotswood College, Te Kura Tuarua o Ngā Motu. And Whai Kitty Fortune actually was the one who started that program up for our rangatahi. And the reason why that is because some of our Māori tamariki don't really get much opportunities because, we have to be honest, some of our kids, sometimes school's not made for them. And they're more better off hands-on. Because I know that I was like that too, growing up as a rangatahi. If I didn't really know much, the first thing I would do was go into the garden or go and forage some kai or, get out and do something. And sometimes you just need to do that with the tamariki, the rangatahi. They just want to get out, get their hands dirty. Or sometimes they don't want to do it, which is ka pai. Either which way, they've got to find something that they enjoy. So my mahi is to actually, find opportunities for them to enjoy. And even if they don't like it, I don't force them to do it. I just let them come, watch, be a part of it. If you're not in the right headspace, kei te pai, it's all good. But if you're there, the main thing is what you see, obviously. And Kai Kōrero, Ray, oh, she's amazing. Like, ever since I met her, going up to Kātere ki te moana has been probably the best thing that the kids have actually enjoyed since being on the program. Whereas
nice.
the program actually isn't really a set program. I just take the kids to wherever I can find things for them to do. Whether it's marakai, because I did marakai level 3 with Tara Lee Manu and Tane Manu, yep. And just finding other things for them to do. Marakai was one, getting into the garden, which now has given them an opportunity to do mahi at the Mawhao Community Garden down here. And so we've got our own little space there where we've created a mara kai for them to come and help grow, get their hands dirty, learn about our, whenua, how to grow their own kai, all that kind of stuff. But the one important part for me, obviously, is kātere, which is looking after all the native plants, all the trees, propagating all our seed sourcing. And if it wasn't for Whai Kōrero, honestly, the kids would probably be bored or keep saying, I don't want to do this anymore. This is boring, because most of them still do. I get new tamariki on the ropu like every term, and some of the tamariki that have been on it since last year have started to take over my job and telling all the students, hey, don't come here and muck around. Fire's not going to put up with that. We need to start doing some mahi.
Ari was saying too, when we were doing their planting at Waiwakaio, the kids were getting hoha because everyone wasn't doing it properly.
I imagine they would have been looking like, don't put it in there like that, or whatever they were thinking.
Yeah. And they were, and I had to actually have a kōrero to them and say, hey, just watch and observe. And if they do it wrong, just say, kei te pai, we'll sort it out later. But don't tell them off.
Oh, I love it. I was planting next to some of them too. I didn't feel the vibe of me doing it wrong, so I must have got the pass, because I'm sure they would have given me either the look or the go right over and fix it as soon as I walk one step away from it.
Exactly.
It's awesome. It's awesome to see those young rangatahi getting taken around and just to offer a different path of learning,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially when we know that it's not working for them where they are, so why try and do the same thing that isn't working, and it didn't work for many of us, actually. So it seems silly to roll it out with the next lot. So you got 7 kids of your own, so you're obviously experienced in raising a child or two and a mokopuna as well. So what does it look like? What's next for the Capper whānau?
We've been on a pretty cool little journey. We're just in the process of purchasing some whenua, some tupuna whenua,
Nice.
Down the coast, just not too far from Poriaka. So we're in a really cool space now. I mean, we've always, we talked about it years ago, about one day, our ultimate goal would be to be on the land with our children and our mokos, and and kind of set some foundations for our whānau for the future. So we're kind of in that space right now. It's been a bit of a journey to get the piece of whenua, but we're almost there. But we next for us is just kind of we want to set up there for the rest of our lives down the coast, and and just we've actually had a couple of real good talks to our tamariki. It was so cool because Ari and I have got we've got these dreams and aspirations for our papakainga, right? And so we thought we'll talk to all the kids, we'll get them all together, and we'll see, and we'll ask them what their dreams and aspirations are, but we didn't tell them any of ours. We just wanted to hear what their thoughts were. And it was so cool because probably I'd say 90% of everything they said, we let them lead it. And everything they said was like aligned with what we were kind of thinking, which was awesome for us as parents to know that, you know, some of those things that we've instilled in the kids over the years has obviously resonated with them. And so to hear that come from them was just really warming for us. So that's kind of where we're heading, is out onto, obviously with Ari with the Mara stuff, like that's her passion, me being on the whenua with the mahi I do. So it just kind of all fits. Yeah, it all fits at the moment. And to be honest, especially like for me on a personal level, like I know I never knew when I was a kid. Like I always just thought, oh yeah, I'm from Te Aotearoa. You know, that's all I kind of really knew. Like we used to go to Pariaka every now and then, or but I kind of never really felt like I was from somewhere, if that makes sense. And it's not since I've been on my whakapapa journey, and we've been on this journey together actually with both of our whakapapa journeys, but that I know I'm starting to know all my links around the mountain now. But to have a place where our kids don't feel like that, that they don't have to experience that feeling that I had. They'll know their connections, but they know that, you know, he pou te whenua, this is their highway. And that's kind of what we're wanting to set up for our future generations.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, well, it sounds good. And you know, it's good that you're looking at the coast, because you'll be half an hour closer to your Ngārua Hine ties. You're only about 35 minutes to Tawhiti Nui, where you might be headed even closer, I think. So, you know, you'll be able to service all taha. Don't worry about those ones right around the north there. There's plenty of people up there. You keep coming around the maunga.
That's the plan. We actually had I think, what is it? It's this weekend we're all supposed to be there. We wanted to our whānau, we're having a big whānau day. I think it was about 170 that registered. So we'd booked Oyo and Tawhiti Nui, but obviously because of COVID, but we just want to rekindle. So as a whānau, we want to go and rekindle our links around the mountain, you know, to hear the stories of our tupuna and stuff. So yeah, we'll be there soon.
Well, you know what's coming next, eh? I'm going to be telling you every time we're having a wānanga and a hui. So you don't have to wait for the big whānau day.
Yeah, true.
Come.
Got me on the spot there.
I'm sorry. Nā reira, koinei ngā mihi nui ki kōrua. Mō ngā kōrero kua whakawhiti ki Wainganui mātou I tēnei wā. It's been awesome catch up. Great kōrero. And thank you for sharing what you've shared with everyone. And this is only part one, e te whānau. It's quite interesting because everyone always says to me, I don't know if I can talk for that long. Well, everyone can. Everyone can. And from this little kōrero, what can come off it, it's huge. And it's ongoing. And it's a voice ākai for your mokopuna. So one day they will be able to say, back in 2021 and level 3 lockdown, my kui and koro had a kōrero with another kuia, and they talked about our papakainga, and this is where we live right now. So, koina te taonga kua kapo I o kōrua kōrero I tēnei rā, ana koinei ngā mihi nui kia kōrua o tiraki o koutou tamariki hoki me te mokopuna. O tiraki koutou rai whakarongo mai nei e mātakitaki mai nei I tēnei pāpāho mataora, koinei ngā mihi ki koutou katoa. Ka kite, hei konei, hei kona.
Thank you, ka kite.